And we're back with yet another S&box update. This devblog was just posted yesterday. It's called Laying Foundations. I skimmed through this earlier and you can definitely tell that Garry is having a lot of fun working on the project. There is definitely a lot of enthusiasm and the outlook is very positive. So we're going to run through this devblog real quick and see what it's all about. Let's get started. 1 month ago, at the end of the last blog, I just got the basics working. The game started and it showed some user interface. There were lots of unknowns, lots of work ahead. A lot of those unknowns are now knowns. A lot of progress has been made. We didn't know what we were going to do about loading models and textures. I spent some time getting it so I could load materials from our own formats. The idea was that instead of using all of Valve's formats, we'd load raw formats like PNG, TGA, and JPEG for textures, FBX, and whatever else for models. This is what we did in the Unreal Engine version, and we were comfortable with that. Then I discovered ModelDoc and everything changed. I'm gonna jump down and talk about ModelDoc. In all the time I worked on Source 1, I don't think I imported a model more than a couple of times. It was hard work. This is probably why Gmod only has a handful of actual original models. What we're looking at now is a screenshot of ModelDoc. This is essentially the model editing tool that puts together everything that makes up a model, including hitboxes, the ragdoll physics, animations, bones, the mesh, and the textures and materials itself. Basically everything joined into one, and it integrates neatly with Source Engine. Garry writes a little bit more about ModelDoc here. He says ModelDoc makes that all look stupid. He's referencing all the work that it took in Source 1 to get a model working in the engine. Makes it all look stupid. With ModelDoc, you can build a model by importing the raw FBX, add animations, add material groups, assign materials to each mesh, build LODs, define the physics holes, the collision bounds, the body groups, ragdoll setup, add new bones, delete all bones, define hitboxes, and more importantly, you can do it all without editing a single text file or running bat files. And then he goes on to say, so when I started to explore this and see how many problems this solved for us, I knew we had to change plans and use this system. It makes importing and setting models up a billion times easier than anything we could have done. It does everything we want it to do. You stick your FBX file there and it converts it to a VMDL. If you edit the FBX, it updates and hot loads the model in game automatically. If you edit the model in ModelDoc, it hot loads the model in game automatically. It ticks every box. So basically they were going to create their own solution to handle all of this, but turns out ModelDoc does it for them. And well, that's what we're going to be using. Up next is asset system. Valve works with an asset system where a directory layout is like this. These would be the paths to load mods for the source engine. So you have a game folder and a content folder. All uncompiled content goes in content and is compiled and goes in game. This doesn't feel that logical to me when creating add-ons, etc. I want to keep the compiled and uncompiled shit in the same folder. I think that's what people using source control will want. So I changed it to work like this. So from what I gather, in the original source engine asset loading, you would have your directory, your mod directory. In this case, it's called my mod. And in that folder, you would have both the compiled content and the uncompiled content, which of course can make things a little bit messy. So Garry changed it up to have a separate folder for compiled content and uncompiled content, just to clean things up, make it a little more tidy, much better to work with overall. And here we have a nice screenshot of S&box and Source 2 showing some tub and Rust assets. It's looking pretty good. The next section is basics. It says, with this huge problem solved, it was time to start stretching in the other direction, exposing stuff to the C# side so they can be used by game modes and add-ons, things like particle effects, traces, sound events, player models, health, dying, respawning decals. So basically what he's saying is he got the big difficult problem solved and he can start working on the more detailed stuff. Networking. We tested out networking too, and I'm happy to report that it works. It uses Steam networking now. This has the massively huge benefit that you can join servers via Steam ID now. Why is that a massive benefit? Because you don't need to reveal your IP address and you don't need to open your firewall. You can just start a game and people will be able to join like it should be. So what he means by that is you do not need a player's IP address to be able to connect to them anymore, because with Steam networking, you can basically connect to their Steam ID and then through the Steam servers handles all the communications, the sending and receiving data, and that's basically it. You just connect to their Steam ID and Steam handles the rest. Player controller. I did a lot of work with player controllers. You can read more about what a player controller is via that wiki link. The TLDR is that it's what moves the player. The default player walk controller I've kept it one for one with Source's player controller. I want it to feel exactly the same. So the default player controller is going to feel exactly like the original Source engine movement, but it doesn't have to be, of course. You can always write your own movement script or modify the default to tweak it a little bit if you want. Animation is another huge leap forward for Source 2. No longer is the animation controller a 2000 line C++ file with a ton of stuff you don't understand. Now it's a nice anim graph with parameters. Here we have the AnimGraph software, which brings together all of the animation clips for a model and helps you decide what animations should be playing when. Looking at the example here, we have citizen at walk. I assume this would be walk forward. So if you want to walk forward, the position X would be just 1, position Y would be 0. So in this case, the Y axis would be your left and right, the X axis would be your forward and backward, and if you want to play the simple walk forward animation, you set the X to simply just 1. Then if you want to walk backwards, you set the X to -1. If you want to walk west, of course you set X to 0, you set Y to 1. If you want to walk east, you set X to 0, Y to -1, etc. And all your code needs to do is set those parameters. The AnimGraph itself goes deeper than just blending between animation sequences. It can control a bunch of IK stuff and a bunch more stuff I don't understand yet. Oh, and guess what? You can edit your FBX animations while playing the game, and it'll hot load and play the changed animations. I wrote a camera system up. Here's the wiki page with some code. The idea is that all the information on how to set up a camera right before render is in the camera class. You can make a different camera classes for different view modes, for example, a first person mode and a third person mode. So switching camera mode is just a case of setting the player's camera class to one of these modes. Of course, go to the wiki page to see code examples for this. This is at sandbox.facepunch.com if you want to check out any of these links and see the code. The video demonstrates 3 camera modes, third person, first person, and a dev cam mode, in which you can move around freely even when paused. The next section is skeletons. Over the last couple of days, I've been experimenting with skeletons and ragdolls, binding up the ability to get and set their bones. I was pleasantly surprised how easy it was to do. I don't know if the code is better or if I just understand it more 15 years after Gmod, but it feels great and performs great. It feels like I can do anything in this engine right now. In the final section, ragdolls. Ragdolls are a part of the model in Source 2. I know that sounds obvious, but in Source 1 it seemed like they were a big deal, with caveats having to be carved out all over the code to treat them properly. In Source 2 you don't even need a special entity, it's just a model. I set this model to be ragdollable in 20 minutes. I probably didn't do a great job, but it's a working ragdoll. And the blog post is summarized with, I know this isn't what this is meant to be about, but I'm having so much fun with this right now. In the last couple of weeks, everything seems to have come together. Every morning, I can't wait to get up and get back in this chair. I might start doing blogs more regular, maybe every week like the old days. Definitely some exciting news there. It'd be cool if we got a blog every week. That'd of course give me something to create a video about every week, which would be awesome. It'd be awesome for me and you guys. And yeah, basically you can see the enthusiasm coming from Garry through this blog post, which is also great. The game is chugging along nicely and I simply can't wait for it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.